Hi, Laura. Thank you for joining me on Misunderstood. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course, anxiety is such an important topic. Everybody has so many questions about it all the time. So I'm really, really glad you're here. And by the way, everybody can understand it. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone's been through it or knows someone who is affected by anxiety. So it's great that you're here. I wanted to start out by letting everybody that's listening and watching know a little bit about who you are and how you got into this field.
Thank you. Oh gosh, I am a therapist. I grew up in the entertainment business where anxiety ran very, very high.
Mm.
And after a heart attack and trying to balance my everything with drugs and alcohol, I found a better way and ended up running a mental health facility that focuses on anxiety, depression, and trauma, not drug addiction.
Mhm.
And the universe just keeps pushing me to, I just am open, and then it's like, write a book. Okay, I'll write a book. Open a charity. Okay, I'll open a charity. And I feel so blessed and so lucky to do what I'm doing, guide fellow anxiety sufferers out of anxiety.
Yeah. So I'm curious, is there one thing or a number of things that led you to want to write this book? The book, by the way, if people are listening, is called The Missing Piece. It's a really great book. Everybody should get it. We'll talk later in the show about where you can get it. But was there something that really triggered you wanting to write the book?
I run a an anxiety center, as I said, and
Mhm.
so it's very unique. It's my patients come anywhere from 9 to 25 hours a week. Most of it is covered by insurance, and
Mhm.
so many people over the years have said, "Will you open one in Florida? Will you open one in New York, Santa Barbara?" And I want to practice what I preach and still enjoy my backyard.
Right.
So I thought, okay, let me get the message out and help people in a way where I can be everywhere, but also still enjoy my life at home and with my friends.
Right. Oh,
What about
wonderful. Okay. So let's talk about the book in general. You start off by talking about something I never even thought of, which is inherited anxiety. I didn't really know that was a thing. I mean, I know if people have like anxious parents, okay, maybe, but tell me more about that.
Sure, they've done a lot of studies. I think the first one was with Holocaust survivors, where we've learned that we don't just inherit our hair color and our eye color. We inherit our trauma. We inherit our the emotional impressions that have been left on our DNA. And then, I'm 4 years old in Tarzana, California, in a lovely little neighborhood, and I'm afraid there's a bear in the closet. Why? I had nothing to be afraid of, but it was inside me from my mother and from her mother and probably her mother before that.
Right. Interesting. So, and I'm curious, like when do they have stats on when anxiety really shows up in people who are inheriting the anxiety, as opposed to it being brought on by some sort of trauma?
I think you could tell just with your baby, your baby is very communicative before it can ever speak.
Yeah.
And there's those babies that are just chill and kind of sitting back and looking at stuff. And there's those babies that are very hypervigilant and alert and aware. And I think those are really the first signs.
Hmm.
And trauma's a little bit more obvious
Right.
in,
Yeah.
when it starts happening.
Right. Of course. Of course. So, something a chapter that I really loved in your book, because I have a 12-year-old daughter, was talking about the anxiety that can go along with social anxiety very young with young kids. Tell me your thoughts on that. I mean, I see that every day. I sometimes get anxious watching the interaction that some kids have with each other, kids being left out, kids being bullied. Whether or not your kid's on one side or the other, it can give the parent anxiety. So, like, can we talk about the whole subject?
Yeah, kids, uh, they haven't fully developed, especially in elementary school, the idea that they're egocentric, not
Mm.
meaning about their egos, but their worlds kind of revolve around them. And they've just moved past expressing emotions because they're crying, because they're hungry, etc. And they're very cruel, I think,
Yeah.
from just an insecure place at a very young age, because it's very dog eat dog out there. We have this natural desire to need to fit in.
Mhm.
I talk about being outcast is literal. It used
Mm.
to mean death. If you were cast out of the cave, that means death.
Yeah.
So you really want to fit in. And instead of having the emotional tools to reach out and love each other and be inclusive, fear is what runs our behavior.
Mm.
And then when you get into teenagers and the hormones come flooding in, and the opposite of true is true. Now they realize, and in therapy, they call it a personal audience. Teenagers think that everybody is looking at them and judging them, and oh my God, my hat, my ear, and they
Yeah.
become so aware of other people and how they're looking at those people and vice versa,
Mhm.
and the insecurity just goes straight through the roof. And hormones at no matter what age you are can be pretty dysregulating.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because you're right. It manifests as insecurity, but it's coming from a place of being anxious, right? Or does one come before the other, actually?
I think they're sort of bedfellows.
Yeah.
I found that the more I've learned to love myself and not judge myself, I've become so much more compassionate and open to other people.
Hmm. Right. So, what would you say to parents that are listening that have kids going through this, young to teenagers, that they could do to help kind of remind kids about, how to look at themselves, at other people, to deal with their anxiety, to deal with the insecurities?
Something I think we need to learn at a young age is that the universe creates things because they're needed. The universe is not very random in what it creates. And each person, each child that you have in your home is very special and has a very special gift to give to the world.
Mhm.
And we spend so much of our early life dumbing ourselves down and trying desperately to fit in that we don't even really discover who we are
Mm.
until we're older. And I think that teaching kids how to embrace their weird, their self, their passions, whatever that is, their people will naturally find them. People resonate with each other's light, which is much more connective than when you're coming from that fearful place that people just smell and back away from.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying and I love what you're saying, but I feel like some adults aren't even at that place yet. So
Oh
like
yeah.
how would we go about teaching younger kids or other people how to do that if we live in such a society that is so focused on social media and looking a certain way and being, doing what the Joneses are doing and keeping up with all that. Like what would your advice be?
I think we often teach what we need to learn ourselves.
That's
And
good.
so if you're feeling that pressure, most of my personal clients, I have other therapists who work with younger people. They're women in their 50s and 60s who have just put their nose to the grindstone from day one, either went to school or had kids and have been trying to be forced into some box. And then they've got migraines and they've got IBS and they've got all these
Yeah.
physical symptoms that's just their body screaming at them to say, "What do you want? It's your turn. This is your chapter."
Yeah, and that's actually my next question. I was going to say, can you describe the physiological effects of anxiety on the body and how they can contribute to a person's overall health and well-being? You mentioned a couple symptoms, but what else how does it manifest?
Well, if you understand anxiety, anxiety is a fight or flight response. And when we're in fight or flight, what our bodies are doing is shooting adrenaline and cortisol into our systems.
Hmm.
And what they do is they kill your dopamine and your serotonin. Those are your feel good neurotransmitters. So when you're anxious, you start to feel your heart racing, you feel your palms sweating, you've got that adrenaline in your tummy, which is not good for your tummy. So
Hmm.
what it's doing is it's dumping acid into your stomach and it's tightening your vasa system, all your veins, all of your heart stuff, and tightening, around your neck, your head, your temples. And so it's creating these tension headaches.
Mm.
The heart, I had a heart attack when I was 37 years old
Wow.
because I was just such a stress case, and I just needed type A perfectionist, go, go, go. And that is not the secret to life. It's about enjoying yourself and finding what drives you in a way that, yes, you're not sitting on a couch, you're moving, but whatever you're doing is bringing you joy. It's
Yeah.
releasing dopamine, it's releasing serotonin or oxytocin. A lot of times anxiety causes you to isolate. When
Mm.
we are hugging each other, when we're laughing, when we're with each other, that's the love neurotransmitter. Oxytocin is what happens between a mom and a baby.
Mm. Mhm.
Oxytocin is what gets released when we eat chocolate. So anxiety takes us away from things and restricts everything, and the feel good stuff brings us out.